Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 111 of Discourse and Magic 111 with the Evasons. This was a super cool episode for a ton of reasons. One, it was another in-person episode, so we got to hang out, chat with them, spend some time together. Number two, it's one we've been looking forward to for a long time. We've been in chats with them for a while. And number three, they're listeners of the podcast, so they know what's up. They're in the Discourse army. And number four, people have been asking us when this episode is going to come out. And anyways, they're just amazing. They do a trick on the episode and they're super wise. They know all about show business, working together as a duo, as a couple. Oof, so much incredible info. Super excited for you to dive into it. And just before we start, I want to give you a thank you for joining us on Discourse and Magic. Super cool that you're here and that we're talking to each other through the radio waves or however the internet works. Anyways, here it is, episode 111 of Discourse and Magic with the Evasons. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse and Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with another incredible in-person interview and a real fun surprise. We got a message the other day that says, we're in town! And we said, you know what? Let's do it. Very pumped to talk to this incredible duo. We are here with Jeff and Tessa Evason, the Evasons. How are you guys?
Hey, everybody. Doing well.
Yeah, we're so happy to be here with you finally, right?
Yeah.
Super pumped to have you guys here.
Been in the works for a while.
Yeah. For a little while, and sort of our usual opening question is, how did you get into magic? But I'd love to sort of put the whole thing together. So how did you each get into this, and then how did you get into this together?
Sure. So Tess, tell your story.
Well, my story, I think I have to start about how we met, and then I'll go to the backstory.
Okay.
But we met with through a mutual friend who was a fashion designer, and this was in Toronto in 1983. And I was modeling with her, and for one of her shows, she wanted to have a magician. And it just happened that I was working with her. I did a few shows with her, and I was helping her produce one of her shows because I just thought she was so awesome the way she organized everything. And then she said, I have this idea that I want to have this magician. And I said, oh, I'll do it with him. And she goes, well, wait, I have to ask all the models. And I'm like, yeah, but I really want to do it. So just pick me. So she went through the whole process, and I ended up being the one, but because I was so assertive about it. And she goes, I've never seen you be so pushy about it. Like, what? What's up with that? And she said, you like magic? I said, I don't know anything about magic. I've never seen a magic show.
Fun. Oh,
yeah,
my
it just sounded like it was good. So anyway, going forward, met Jeff, and we worked together. We did some magic and rehearsed. And then we did the show together.
The first show we did.
The first show together.
And then from there, we just started getting booked on, I think, cruise ships in the first year.
Yeah.
Muskoka resorts. We did all the places, Fern Resort, and
we just took flight. It just went really crazy.
But I started when I was 14. My grandfather had recently separated from his third wife. So he had tickets for a cruise on the Rotterdam, a Holland America ship, that winter in February. So he asked me if I wanted to go with him. So I got out of, I think it was grade 9, got 2 weeks out of class and went on a ship, and there was a magician on the ship. His name was Bernard Reed from New Zealand. And that was it. I got the bug. You know, when you get the bug, they talk about being bitten by the bug, and I think it was the first love of my life was magic. And I knew immediately that I had to do what this guy was doing. So I saw every show he did. Everywhere I saw him on the ship, I was...
You're kind of hounding, stalking him.
Yeah. You know, we're still friends to this day.
His pant leg, like, do another. Right.
He gave me a book, Henry Hay, Amateur Magician's Handbook. Actually, it was referred to last night, Matt Tessero on stage during a Q&A. We'll get to that later, but we worked with him, and he referred to it as his first magic book. So I think it's
awesome.
It's a great book. And that started it off for me, really. I knew, by grade 9, I knew what I wanted to do for a living. And but I went to college and did radio, so did magic part-time.
I don't know what all the courses were about, but they could easily have just been about like deeper. Just talk a little bit deeper.
I think we went to bed at 5 a.m. and got up so early. It was a little late today. Yeah, thank you, Matt. Then I did magic part-time, radio full-time, and ended up in Nova Scotia doing an afternoon drive show in Halifax and realized, I want to be back in the city. So moved back here. Well, an interesting aside, actually, I moved into an apartment on Eglinton, 130, I think. I can't remember the address, but on Eglinton.
907 Eglinton Avenue.
Wow. Hello.
She's the organized one.
That's right. She's the psychic.
Psychotic.
So I moved into this apartment with a friend, roommates, and called my mom in Cornwall, Ontario, where she lived, 250 miles away, to let her know my new address. And so when they were first married, my parents, they lived here in Toronto and had us, my sister and I, as babies. And at 3 months old, we moved away to Cornwall when I was 3 months old.
Right.
So I'd see all these old home movies of Christmas time in this apartment in Toronto overlooking a parking lot, but there's the Christmas tree.
Oh,
and whatnot.
no way.
And
I
that
know what's
unit,
coming.
the very same unit that I ended up with in my early 20s was where I spent the first 3 months of my life.
Not even the same building, but the
Just the same unit.
Wow.
The very same unit. It was so
That's
surreal.
incredible.
Wow.
It is kind of an incredible
You know,
thing.
we
It's
talk
the
a
truth.
lot on this podcast about like things that are not necessarily magic but magical, and like that we as magicians are the most sensitive to those things in our lives. And I don't know,
absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe I'm sure someone who's a filmmaker or something might like that too. But I feel like for me, it just makes my fingers tingle just a little bit more. That you move back into the same place and you would have never known.
Yeah.
And it was such a great apartment. It was like a great magic apartment. It was great for doing our business together. It was
Much
great
like
for
this
rehearsing.
apartment with all this
Yeah.
magical clutter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
It was so much good
magical
space.
clutter.
It was
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
So my roommate had a friend who was a fashion designer. She asked me, she knew that I did radio. So she said, would you host this fashion show and maybe use one of the models as an assistant and do some magic in the show? And so she went back to the models after I said yes and asked all the models who wants to help the magician, and Tessa volunteered.
Right, so I went to that apartment because he opened the door and I thought, oh my God, I think I'm in love. Like, that was it.
And I said, get in that box.
I'm like, sure, I'll do anything you want
Whatever,
me to do.
just put me in the show. That's such a fun origin story, and particularly because we hear sort of both ends of origin stories. We hear a lot of magicians who end up being maybe creators or lifelong students are the people who get in when they're like 4, and they're like, I just been studying since I was 4. I just love it. And then we meet people who get into it in maybe their late teens or their early 20s or maybe even later. And then it ends up actually being a real jumping off point for their career, because I don't know, you just see it in a different lens. When you're young, you think of playing, and when you're older, you think of business and a job and stuff like that. So it's very cool to see both of that happen together, and then that really take off into the world as the Evasons.
Yeah, it was awesome. I actually found everything really easy, and I just adapted very quickly. I was just so excited to be doing it. And we were watching videos, as magicians all do at all hours of the day. And we were watching this video, and I said, Jeff, I know how that's done. And he goes, no, you don't. You've never seen it before. I said, yeah, but I know how it's done. And I told him, he goes, yeah, you're right. And it was Backstage Illusion, Mark Wilson. And as I'm watching it, it just sort of went ding in my brain. I thought, oh my God, I've seen this before, and I know where I've seen it. I saw it when I was living in St. Lucia in the Caribbean. That's where I grew up for some of the years of my life. And in those days, there was hardly anything on TV. So if anybody went to the U.S. or Canada, they'd make VHSs and bring them back, and then they make an announcement and broadcast it on one of the stations. And it happened to be Mark Wilson, a clip doing Backstage Illusion. That's the only magic I've ever seen in my entire life. Wow. That was it. But I'll never forget the feeling of it. I was just like in awe. And then I was thinking to myself, I think I know how they did it. And I was turning to tell my friend beside me, but everybody in the room was saying, it was just looking like they were just blown away. Yeah. So that actually hit me more than just me being amazed. I thought it was just incredible.
That sort of, that feeling of, I know how this works, and you know what? Maybe it'll be my secret. Maybe that'll be a part of it.
So talking about magical, it was really a magical moment. It was incredible.
To feel that sort of thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so cool to hear how acts come together. More what I'm interested in, though, is the evolution of the Evasons. Because you said, I don't know if this is true, if it was a joke or not, but get in the box is not what you do anymore, right?
But for years we did a big illusion show. We had an illusion show called Fascination that we toured across the country, and we did what's called phone promotions. Not too much of that anymore, but Murray Hatfield used to do. He was with another company. So it's those big shows that tour, and they seem to fill up auditoriums. Typically, it's a high school or performing arts center. But you tie it in with a sponsor, and that would be a charity such as, let's say, Lions Club.
Right.
And you create a phone room, and people just phone everybody in the phone book and sell tickets. You sell tickets to businesses who then give them away to customers. And before you know it, you filled up a theater maybe 4 times, and you do these shows in these small towns. So Tess and I did that for so many years. We did this illusion show, and then work cruise ships and some corporate events. And
that was, you were lugging around big stuff.
Oh,
yeah,
huge,
big
huge
stuff.
props.
Oh, man, I can see the hate on your face and your eyes bulging.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
big stuff.
That's just too much sun over 2 years. But then we got a booking on a cruise ship. I think the first year, and so we would do it every winter. And at one point, we did 2 years straight on cruise ships. And in those 2 years, we came home. We had a break at one point for a couple of weeks, and we came home, visited a friend, and he had a tape of a couple doing a mind reading act similar to what we do today. And he said him and his wife were learning it. And we thought, oh my God, this is so perfect for us in the cruise ships. And being a friend, he said, no, I'd rather you didn't do it. I want to do it. And nobody was doing it at that point. The couple that he was playing the tape for us, they had long since retired. Really, there was nobody doing 2-person mentalism that we knew of. Nobody famous. So after a couple of years, he didn't do it. He just said, you know what, I give up. My wife isn't interested. It's too much work. You guys can take it. And so we did. And we had all the time in the world on the ship because we did a couple of shows a week, all this downtime sitting in the cabin. It was the perfect thing. And for a few years, we studied, and we would show friends on the ship, other performers.
Or staff members or anybody, like that.
And we're still doing the illusions. And then after a couple of years of study and practice, and we could do it pretty well on our own, and for friends, never had done it in front of a group. And keep in mind, Tess was a magician's assistant. She had never, ever spoken in a microphone in her life.
Oh, wow.
This is
Right.
she was just not comfortable with it, but never really tried it. There was no opportunity. So we're going through a hurricane remnants in the Caribbean following a big storm, and the seas were very sloppy, and nobody could perform that night. The band couldn't perform, the dancers couldn't perform, but they had a scheduled
because everything
show.
was
Just too rough, and it was a floor show.
Yeah.
One of the smaller ships at the time, maybe 1,000 passengers.
Right.
I can't remember.
It was pre-Celebrity, the cruise line Celebrity.
It was the Americanus, a beautiful ship, old ship, the SS Americanus, and so the captain insisted that we do a show that night. He said, I want the singer and the magicians. Well, that night we were scheduled to do a broom suspension, fire eating, some stuff in between, but none of that could be done. So we just got together with the singer and said, here's what she'll do. We'll debut the mind reading act, knowing that there would be hardly anybody in the audience because everybody was sick in their cabins.
Perfect timing.
Right.
Wow.
And so we went on stage that night. I went out and started talking about how the audience had seen Tessa in a role this past week as a magician's assistant, but tonight she was going to come out as her true self, which is this woman who knows.
Right.
And she's backstage in the dressing room.
Just panicking. Just
Literally to the point where she's sick.
Sick to my stomach. Done.
And of course, didn't help that the boat is going back and forth.
Makes it even worse. And so, but she came out, and we did some simple objects. We did some names. We've always done the names, which kind of sets us apart from others and that really just floored people that she knew this stuff. And so here we have all this big props with the impaled beyond belief, where she'd get up on the sword, but all they talked about was, how did she know the serial number in that bill? How did she know my husband's first or middle name?
Right.
And so for the rest of the week, that was the buzz, and the cruise director said, you guys have to keep that in the show. And so that was the first that we did it. And it was going back into the late 90s, right?
Well, I think
80s, sorry,
late 80s,
yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s, yeah.
Wow.
And so eventually we married the two. We would do illusions. The middle of our show would be this mind reading, and then we would close with a metamorphosis and the impalement.
And then you were like, I'm tired of lugging this stuff around. I don't know what.
Yeah,
It was that. It was also, I think, along the way, watching so many different magic acts, and we just kept thinking, we're going to get older soon. What are we going to go to? Because we love show business, and we knew we always wanted to do something in show business. So that act was just perfect for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just all the success that was happening so quickly just pushed us to it faster. dancer.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's not surprising to me that it's something you noticed was a successful act, because watching you guys perform, I only saw you do 5 minutes maybe, but it was one of the most magical experiences I've had in a very long time, because I haven't been fooled that badly in a very long time.
And the funny thing is that night was
God.
the James Allen night, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
So I had foot surgery last spring, and I couldn't work. I couldn't be on my
We were
feet for
off
2
about-
months.
Yeah, 2 full
Wow.
And
months.
so you're not performing after 2 months, especially an act of our nature where it is all about the audience.
Yeah.
We don't even plan necessarily we kind of have a roadmap of where we're going to go, but the audience decides based upon what they have with them and who they are. So we really need to work constantly. And we hadn't worked for 2 months, so we had a lot of stuff coming up in August. And I just called James and I said, we're in Canada. We have a home, down near Montreal. And I said, can we just come in and do a spot for you? So that's the night that you saw. But we hadn't worked. Keep in mind that was not at our top.
He was
so
at my house a few days later, and he was like, "That was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life." So very
was a
excited.
fun
Actually,
night.
can we get a little demonstration here? What's going on?
Oh, really?
How do you...
What do you mean?
Can
What
we?
do you mean?
Can I
We know
can you
your
read my
names. We
thoughts?
know
I don't know.
your-
You know my name. What can I give you? I don't know.
Well, let me close my eyes right away so
Yeah,
that if you
close
do
your
happen
eyes.
to bring something out, I won't see
Here,
it.
if I've got
And
what's in here, you got stuff. in
yeah, I
here.
was going to say, let
Well,
me.
Tessa, her eyes are closed.
Yeah,
Her eyes are
I want to
closed.
still
away.
face
So
the mic.
Perhaps if you go
for me.
ahead with your eyes are closed.
They're definitely closed. I have my glasses on. I'll take them off so you don't think that I'm glaring through. So you didn't say anything about what you were pulling out. But I get a sense right away that you have something important in your mind, something with value to it. I'm thinking actually about a bill right now.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking...
She's reading it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about the value?
I am thinking a not very large bill. I like to get bigger bills, but that's okay. You're doing this on the fly. I think a $5 bill is what you
Yes,
pulled out,
that's
right?
right.
Now working the serial number.
I want to try to do that. That's always the challenging part.
No way.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jonah, ignore the letters. And I don't know, Tyler, if you're looking on, you can see this. Just look at the numbers. And I'm thinking right away, the 5 is the first number, right? Yeah. And then a 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're thinking now. Is that an 8?
Yeah.
Just breathe, Jonah. Is that,
Yeah,
is that a
it's
0?
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, a 9,
Yeah.
a 4, and a 7.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You look at it. Continue.
Wow.
You want me to get the letters? There's 3
my
letters.
goodness.
HBY.
Yeah.
What? That was incredible.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
That's on the spot. That's under the
Yeah,
microphone.
that was
Yeah.
on the spot.
Yeah.
They did not know that I was gonna challenge them.
Another thing I found very interesting about that story was the fact that, sorry, I'm not looking at you. I'm trying to speak into a microphone. I feel like I'm being rude. But I feel like it's such an interesting standpoint to be afraid of talking, but comfortable on stage, right? You've done modeling work. You're used to
Right.
being a presence in front of people, but speaking would be hard. Whereas if someone said, get up on stage and dance, or showcase your clothes without a microphone in your hand, I would have a panic attack.
Right, it's interesting how that works. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be 2 things: either a doctor or an entertainer, one or the other. And dance actually was ballet. Was what my passion was when I was very young. My mom was the critical care nurse supervisor in Kitchener-Waterloo, which is where I grew up when I was a kid. So I really admired her and always went through all her medical books, and I just was fascinating about anatomy. And then I had a passion with entertainment, but both my mom and dad were like, yeah, that's a hobby, but you need a better job and money and et cetera. So that was cool. But when I moved to St. Lucia when I was about 9 or 10, there wasn't any ballet classes. I did some dance classes, et cetera. But I was very passionate about it. But I was very shy and withdrawn always, unless I got comfortable with people. And then when I met Jeff, I felt like he'd known me all my life the moment I met him. And his family used to go to the neighboring island in the Caribbean, Barbados. And so he really understood Caribbean people. And I think that really helped me get out there. But now, I'm really comfortable on stage, and you just can't stop me talking sometimes. I got the other
But
direction.
and then talking with a blindfold.
yeah,
doing
it's
the whole
very
show,
bizarre.
that is
Yeah.
So it's
Crazy.
really something that,
Yeah.
especially your first time out there, you put a blindfold on, you can't see,
it's just
Yes.
it's
and
just
you
you
have
and
to
your-
pay attention
yeah.
because she's constantly
a lot of
calculating.
stuff
Right.
going on.
And yet, I think from day one almost, I mean, you weren't as proficient as you are now. What's amazing is that Tess is nonstop and magicians talk about even last night. We did this show out in Fergus where a lot of magicians were there, and I didn't even tell you, but so many of them complimented the ability that you have to just talk nonstop, interesting. It's pertinent information, and yet all that while you're calculating information
and storing
and
information.
retaining information.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
And trying
not
to
an
figure
easy.
out what's the best way to present that thought, that item for that person who I can't see. And sometimes I don't even know if they're a man, woman, or a child.
Where? Like, you're the wrong way. Oh, they're over here. That's awesome. I wanted to dive in and talk a little bit about how you guys are performing as a couple. You know, that's a very it's something that we still don't see a lot of in magic.
It puts a whole different kind of pressure on your professional and personal relationship,
exactly.
right? There's different forces on both. So is there any sort of insight that you feel is pertinent?
Or advice to young budding magic couples?
Well, we were asked that question last night, and I think that for us, when we referred to the beginning, when we started working, and even on the cruise ships, we weren't a couple romantically. We were purely a business couple.
Partners.
And for for a number of years.
5 long years. Okay.
So we had this arrangement where we worked together. And we had an office, and we were putting out tons of work combined because we had double the efforts. And we did our shows together, but we were best friends. So we'd go out partying together, we'd hang out together, but that was all it was. And when it was the cruise ship, the first booking that changed it because we were in this small cabin. So after a couple of months, things happened. But I think that laid the groundwork for a successful relationship.
Absolutely.
I think that you got to be friends, and you hear it all the time, but especially doing show business, which is not easy. You're never guaranteed of anything, and in 35 years we've been together, we've probably been away from each other for 4 days.
Wow.
Total of 4 days.
Yeah,
So
because
that's
a work trip is together. You're both going to
Always
right?
together.
Yes, and when we're on the road, I mean, we're in a hotel room, a small space. At home, whatever our home happens to be in the time, then we have other space, so we can sort of create a little bit of separation there when we need to. And then also, we're working together a lot, but with email and all the communication, we often email each other messages instead of talking because it's just easier that way. And sure that we both paid attention to it. But the other side of our lives that we spend a lot of time is sailing, because that's our other passion. So,
cool.
So I think the other dichotomy of that is that even though we work together in business, we play similarly, and that really helps to strengthen our relationship. But I would encourage couples to do separate things too. That probably will help you to get a stronger connection. I think there's probably very few couples performing together that spend that much time together, though. So that probably should help them that it survived more. So,
and I think especially in two-person mind reading acts, if you look at the history, it's a rough road. A lot of them just don't end up staying together. That's just the way it has been throughout history. So even like my heroes, personal heroes, the Zanzig's famous act. There were two Mrs. Zanzigs. For different reasons, but it's a challenging thing. Look, if we make a mistake in our act, if there's a mistake, even if I make the mistake, which it probably is me, Tess is the one that takes the heat because she's made the error in the audience's eyes, and so. You come down from a show and you review the errors that you've made on stage, and inevitably I'll think I said or did one thing, and she'll say, "No, you didn't. You did another thing." And so was it a slip of my tongue? Was it something that she heard incorrectly? But this can easily lead into an argument if the show went bad. So fortunately for mentalism, you are allowed to make mistakes, and maybe even some people say you should make mistakes. Maybe it helps to make it a little more believable. We don't have to plan a mistake because it's going to happen. Right. I mean, it always happens. Yeah. But I think it just helps make it more believable. And
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think we all entertainers, we're much harder on ourselves. The audience doesn't know exactly where you're going
What's
moment to
happening,
moment,
Yeah.
and so they may still respond in a positive way, but you may get off the stage and think, "Oh, that wasn't a very good
was
show."
brutal.
Yeah, or
overall,"
like
and-
you plan a moment and it
Yeah.
doesn't go perfectly, like according
Right.
to plan,
Right.
but it still hits, and then you walk off going, "I'm a failure," or like,
Right.
"Why didn't the lighting cue guy do the thing when he was supposed to do the thing?"
Right.
But it doesn't really matter. It's more your intention. You still get a good result, but it's
Yeah.
not
Right.
your intended result.
right.
And sometimes you don't get a lot of applause or response, and
Yeah,
then,
you're
for me
like,
wearing
"Oh,
a
no."
blindfold
Yeah,
especially,
it's the
it's
only
like
thing you-
I want
yeah.
to peel it up and go, "Is anybody
Yeah.
there?
Did you like it?
What's going on?"
Did they leave?
Yeah, but I think that sometimes they're so stunned that they're not sure how to respond, and
Yeah.
after a while, sometimes it's almost not like a show. It's so real, even no matter what we do, no matter what we say to counteract that, we realize that they're still blown away. And if I'm uncertain, I just go to the ladies' restroom after the show and sneak in before
Yeah.
they get in and just
hear
listen
them
because I'm
talking
going to
to
hear
each other,
everything and
yeah.
know what's going on.
And part of it, I imagine, and you guys didn't say anything about this, but part of it, I imagine, is that in terms of working together as a couple, is maybe the business part is business, but when you're on stage, like that's got to be fun, that's got to be a real pleasure for you guys to do. It's not, it's not like it's work, but it's not work, like it's fun. Like that's why we're all in show business. That's why we all like being on stage, and
Oh,
it's cool to
absolutely.
be able to share that with your partner. A lot of magicians have a lot of trouble when like the partners just don't understand. It's like, why are they so self-centered? It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just like, I have to think about a lot about what I do, and like my stage is everything. It's my whole. So a big part of it is like, it's kind of like going sailing, right? Like you're like, let's go out on stage, like let's have some fun, like let's.
I think you you said it exactly, because Tessa had sort of a history in show business, being a dancer or a model, or so she always saw the bright lights were attractive to her.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of magicians, from what we hear when guys come up to us, and we do a ton of colleges in the U.S., and so you tend to get a lot of younger guys who are like, "Hey, I want my girlfriend to get in an act," and if your girlfriend doesn't want to get into an act, you shouldn't be expecting that she's going to be a success at this. And I think that's kind of the reason why a lot of couples fail at it, because the guy is so intrigued. He's been bitten by the bug, but maybe the woman just would rather be 9 to 5 and come home and have weekends off.
Right. She doesn't want to be woken up, falling asleep and woken up. Hey, let me show you this
Have an
trick.
idea.
Oh, yeah, I got to talk about this idea. Let's watch this
That
video.
sounds like last night you were trying to sleep. Like, hey, what about that?
Oh, I was just wiped last night, and we had sort of like a mini party in our room, and I just said to them, keep talking.
I'm gonna
And
go to sleep.
I'm just napping, and I still have my clothes on, and then every so often they'd say something, and I just respond, and they, "Oh, we thought you were sleeping." I said, "No, I'm just resting."
Just resting my eyes. Famous last words before I go
exactly.
to sleep.
But it's not always easy, like the road is challenging and it's tough, and but it is the best part of it, is to be on stage. But also I think that we get home and you're on the road. It's funny. You're on the road and you say, just can't wait to get home. Got
Your bed,
we got 3 days off right now. So we have this home down in Montreal. We're going to go chill out for a few days. But I know when I get there tomorrow, I just want to be back on the road.
You're bored. You're like, what do I do with myself?
Happens,
Like, I don't.
And I feel if we're working, if we're on the go, if we're moving, then our life is moving forward. And if we're not, if we're sitting at home,
It's stagnant.
after
and
a
that's
day or
not-
two, you start feeling, oh my God, like you
What
get
am I
this.
doing?
Yeah.
You're
We just
worried.
sitting on our computers doing all that kind of stuff, and then that's like too much to get locked
Like
in
reading
there.
a local newspaper, like, what is this? What's going on here? Why do I even get these anymore? That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. And I love the idea of just being able to, enjoy that sort of thing together, enjoy. I see so many magicians, and I just mentioned this a moment ago, but I see so many magicians and you see it often, like magicians will often end up dating either like an actress who's like, you see it, you understand, or maybe the opposite. And it's like, I'll be the creative one, you be the one who has an actual real job in case this doesn't, whatever, you know, like
right.
you see the opposite. It's very cool to be able to share in that joy of like, we're going on tour, like we're, it's the kind of thing, it'd be very cool to share with a partner.
I also think it's very cool that you started out as a professional relationship before a romantic one. I think that there's so much value in that because, they say you have a workplace family, and I think that that's true. Like your coworkers know so much about you, and you really get to understand how someone, not just who they are, but how they function and how they work and what they're good at and what their weaknesses are. And then you accept that because you have to. You're working together. And then to turn that into a romantic relationship just sounds like a recipe for success, I hope, because I'm dating my former boss right now. And that would be fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. It's been the best relationship so far. So
Yeah, but former boss, what happened?
Yeah. Well, that's really great insight. So it's true because you spend so many hours together in these incredibly challenging situations. And you know what you're saying about the couple thing, we always say that we are so fortunate that we're traveling together because some of those travel days are crazy and we wouldn't make it to our event or whatever if there weren't two of us.
Yeah.
And so we hear all the horror stories for guys traveling by themselves or girls by themselves.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. I mean, I was thinking that too because we just did this whole event with Ryan Joyce yesterday, and so he's one of those people that's out there a lot, and then coming back trying to work with all of us at a distance to produce the show that we did last night in Fergus, Ontario, and but it just came off brilliantly. And part of it too is the team. The film crew was a lot of magicians, so it had a lot of
I think
experience.
Graham Reed was on
Yeah,
it.
Graham was
Yeah,
there.
What a great guy. And he
Oh,
warmed
what
up
a-
the
what a
audience,
gem.
and
Yeah.
he didn't perform, but he was the warm up to, and you could see he's
he's a
probably
gem.
a really good performer.
Scott
He's a-
Boyd was
he's a
there,
great
and
performer.
Brandon
Oh,
Level.
awesome.
So
Awesome. Yeah,
he
Brandon's
was-
also a really great
So
guy.
they were super.
Peter Manny,
Oh, Peter Manny. Yeah, he was a stage
Awesome.
manager. Did a phenomenal job for us. Made me
It's-
feel like a princess. It was just
You know
incredible.
what? And on the same sort of note as we were talking about before, like, and it's sort of a joy of, you know, this podcast and the Toronto Magic Company I do with Ben and, you know, stuff like that, is we have such a great opportunity to work with the people that we love. And whether it's like romantically or just, you know, working with like our very close friends and incredible people in our lives that we get to just be like, yeah, we all got to work together on a project. You know,
Yeah.
I not feel bad, but, you know, I wonder what it's like to work in a desk job, you know, where you don't get to think about, yeah, and I can do this, and I can have him come and join me, and this
Right.
friend can come and this, you know, like I feel like
you
I'm
have
just
to talk to HR first.
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I just get to play, like I get to
Yeah.
work with my favorite people and do the most incredible
Yeah.
things.
True.
So
And what was so great about last night too, so we brought a friend of ours, Alex Bourgeot, who used to be the sound guy at Harper's Night Magic. I don't know if you guys know or ever heard about this dinner
A
theater.
little night magic.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
Oh
yeah.
my God, it was so successful. And then just about
That was the
everybody.
one here a while ago.
Quite
yeah?
some time
Yeah,
ago,
a while
It
ago.
was
So-
the longest running dinner theater
Yeah.
production in Toronto.
It was-
I don't know if it still holds that record, but it,
It
did
was
for years.
before my time, but I know all about it because we produced the shows with the Toronto Magic Company. It's sort of like a, you know, held in
Yeah.
very high regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal show. And last night we had, it seemed like the whole cast was out in the
Yeah.
audience.
Glenn Ottaway was
Dave
there.
Peck, Mike Carboni.
Yeah.
Oh, Dave.
And he brought his family
Yeah.
too. And Alex did the sound. So, and he was our roadie for the longest while too, really good friend. So when we were in Mexico, Paul Vigil
Yeah.
also joined us when we were doing performing at a cabaret that we did. This is just our second year doing it. So it's just been awesome. It's just nice all the connections that you have,
Yeah.
and that's really how we get to see our friends, you know, on the road.
But that, you know, that's such a big part of it. It's the same thing. Like you get to work with the most amazing people
Yeah.
and your friends. It's because like you get to do shows together, and
Right,
it's so
right.
fun. You know, other people they get, I don't know, they play like euchre. I don't know what people do with friends. Like for me, it's like, we
Right.
do shows. We go see each other's shows. Like we
Right,
have
yeah.
fun, and so
You create together,
It's such a big
right?
exactly.
Yep.
I was
Yeah.
just thinking, Ahmed came also last night.
Yeah,
Alexander.
Ahmed,
yeah.
yeah.
So that was good to have him.
We
too.
got the update on Bobby Mota. So
Yeah.
Mota. So
Yeah.
that's
Wishing him the best and his family.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about, I know you guys are always on the road, which is awesome. And by the way, just for a moment for anybody, I think that you probably have the best magic website that has ever existed ever.
Really?
Oh, my
I think it
goodness.
needs an update.
I think it's fantastic. I saw it. I was like, oh my God. Matt DeZero sent it to me because I was helping him with his site. And I was like, yeah, it's the best website I've ever seen. So I think it
thank
looks
you.
great. But you guys are always on the road, always doing shows. You said you do a lot of the college market. Tell us a little bit about some of the types of audiences and shows that you work with, that you enjoy, that maybe give you trouble travel, things like that?
Well, our three main markets are corporate, cruise ships, although very few cruise ships anymore. So I could have kind of even ruled that out because we're down to 3 weeks a year but by choice. So colleges, corporate, and some performing arts theater stuff. We're involved with a touring show called Masters of the Mind. Chaim Goldenberg was in it for a little while. Guy Bavley. Now we have Dale Kay, hypnotist, and we do some performing arts with that.
You guys know Dale Kay?
The name sounds very familiar, but I
Canadian
don't.
guy, but lives in the U.S. and he's number one college hypnotist. He's just so good.
Yeah, I feel like Spidey might have mentioned him on his episode.
Oh, probably,
but,
yeah.
So, what is the question?
It was sort of like, what do you like? What do you like? So, because a lot of magicians, they dream of cruise ships and colleges. This is sort of the dream.
That's a really great question when you put it that way too. We love college campus shows. There's just a
and
great
we just
energy.
kind of realized that recently.
Yeah.
I think we've always loved them,
Yeah.
but I think we've just kind of talked about how much we love them recently.
And what comes to mind for you?
Well, I think with cruise ships, and especially corporate, the audience is only there because you happen to be on this. They didn't come to see you.
Journey. Right.
They're either on the ship because that's the week they booked,
or that's the holiday party, and
whoever happens to be on the stage that night is their choice. But with performing arts, they buy a ticket to go see you, so they are they're your audience, and also at colleges, they other than orientation's the beginning of the year where they kind of have to go, they're herded in and everybody's there and they didn't know it was you. But for the whole rest of the year, they're promoting a show like any other show. They're putting posters up, they're doing table cards, they're sending email blasts, they're doing their Facebook and social media stuff, and the audience chooses to come. So rather than watch their favorite TV show or surf the web, they're going to go and see your show. So they tend to be
really
a great crowd.
Audience. Yeah.
The money's really good. The conditions are fabulous because
they've got all that tech or
they've got the university budget.
And they have options of where the space you can perform in.
Yeah.
And Canadian colleges are wonderful, and that's how we started doing colleges here in Canada. But there's a big difference, and it's drinking. And so if you even do a nooner, let's say at I won't call one out, but say any college in Canada, there's a pretty good chance that they're having a beer at 1 o'clock in the afternoon
for sure
while they're watching your show. Right?
I was in university.
But in the U.S., the drinking age is 21. And so you will get, just a different kind of audience, and the conditions, rather than working in a pub or in a dining hall cafeteria, you're in a real stage, a lot of times soft seats and all the production you can imagine. The weird thing can be that you can get to a college by this time of year. The season's almost over because schools, it won't be too long before it's out. But we have some more colleges coming up, and at this time of year, it's not uncommon to get there, have a huge theater, and maybe 40 people in the audience. Sometimes even less if they've programmed it wrong.
Is it because you think it's exam time and people are crunching?
It's because, they're on their way out. Their minds are on their way out.
Or too many other things happening. Yeah. Sometimes you'll be up against another event on campus that they didn't realize. If it's a big game and they're in the playoffs, then that's where they're going.
So do you find that when you're in these sort of weird scenarios, these weird shows that you thrive maybe that there's a few people you get to really interact with them, or does the discrepancy of 500 seats and 40 people make it so that it's a difficult atmosphere?
I think 40 is good, but if it's 10, it's a challenge.
Then it's a challenge. But 40 we can still do fine with it. I mean, if anything, they're more uncomfortable than we are, right? Because they're probably wondering, where is everybody else, and should we even be here? Yeah. But we just change our energy, take it down a little bit because it's a smaller crowd. The material flies by faster, obviously, so we'll probably end up doing more material for our college shows. We book 60 minutes, but we usually end up doing anywhere from 70 to 75.
Right.
For that exact reason, we realize that we may have a small crowd, so let's not say we're going to do all that material, which would take longer. Right. So we just protect ourselves because some schools are very specific. You said this much time, and we expect to get that time. Right. But and we just flow with them, and they're comfortable, and we have a good time. So it's still fine with us. And if we need to, the other thing we can do,
bring out those big, huge box illusions, and I hop in. We always
Get in
bring
there,
that in
girl.
the trunk just in case.
We just
If it doesn't fit an overhead, it's not
we just do some teasers, and we can just go to a cafeteria somewhere and just do
Right.
what we just did with you,
Yeah, it's
and a
bonkers.
couple of other things.
And
within-
I'm sure you can
Yeah.
get 50 people out to a show in 10
and
minutes.
then they'll just pop out. And then, of course, with social media, they get
Yeah.
send the messages out,
Yeah.
and then we bring out a bigger crowd.
It doesn't happen often though.
No, it
so
doesn't,
most
no.
times you've got a really healthy audience,
Yeah.
and they're there to see you. It's
And
a
they have
fantastic
energy.
show.
They're young.
Right.
They're,
Oh, it's such good energy,
yeah.
and you know we did. I think. Well, we've been doing colleges now for how many years? 20 some years, and we did the World's Greatest Magic back in 1990. What was that? 98? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
98,
World's Greatest
yeah.
Magic, and we got a call soon after that aired by a big agency in Michigan that did U.S. colleges, and so he said we want to take you on our roster, and so that was our introduction to U.S. colleges, and it's a big market. You've probably had other performers on talking about it, but you do showcases, and then on those showcases, you can book up an entire year. And so we did a showcase last year. You can only do it every other year. You can't do the same showcase every year. They skip a year.
So last year was national and was
NACA or whatever?
in Baltimore near where NACA, right?
And we've just had our busiest year in colleges. And we would think at our age and our stage of the game, and plus when we first came into this game in the college market, we're just a handful of mentalists.
Right.
You would do the marketplace. It's like a trade show where they come in and they go to, there might be all kinds of novelties and jumping tents and everything you could imagine that you could have as an activity. And a magician, maybe a couple of mentalists.
Maybe a
now
hypnotist.
there's tons of mentalists.
Yeah.
You walk up and down those aisles and, I joke about it, but a lot of guys tend to be saying to people, hey, come over and put this die into your hand and shake it up.
Yeah, very much so.
There's a lot of dice in this room.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And then there's each booth is like person's name, magician, mentalist, hypnotist, right? So they're covering all the bases.
everything.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, they do it all. Right.
So,
Yeah. It seems like a lot of your stories in terms of the business aspect of show business start with, and then we did that, and then people started finding us. We started getting booked on it, and it seems like the getting booked a lot aspect came from being such a fantastic act. So my question is, have you found the sort of like, the real grind, the uphill battle of the business aspect of it? Or has it been a real 90% focus on the having a great act and the business follows with, agents chasing you and things of that nature?
I wish it was less business and more just working on the
I think
act.
it used to be less business because there was so much work, and I was even thinking yesterday because of course all those great acts we worked with, probably 80s, early 90s, every time you did a corporate show, you always worked with a few acts on stage and then plus others doing close-up of the reception.
And all the work came through agents.
It came through agents. They took care of everything. And, you still had some stuff you did, but now we're doing so much more of the business work ourselves, and it makes it really, really challenging. And so, as you were saying, that's true. We wish it could be less of that.
But I don't think you can. I think if you sit
social
back
media, too.
and just work on the act, which you have to do, but you've also got to pay attention to your marketing and your promotion and making contact and networking. And so
You guys are in a better place because you're younger than we are. So, social media and all that is sort of
Flows
like
through my
part
blood,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at what everybody else, what are they doing? Because you know better than we know. And we find that harder. It's like more of an effort, more a conscious effort to make it happen. And it's hard to balance both of them out. So I don't know. We just do the best we can on that note and just keep trying to maintain the act as best we can too.
But it's working, and we have a lot of agents that international. So we just came back from Dubai, and we were in Mexico last week. We're going to be in FISM.
In Korea in July.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
Well, that's Max Maven is putting together one of the nights. Am I right?
That's right.
Is it?
Yeah.
And so Max contacted us to see if we would be on the show with him. Well, we worked with Max in England.
In England in January.
Right.
The session, Joshua J., Andy Gladwin.
Yeah.
So actually we did the event, which is the day before the Mentalism one-day conference.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just blanked on his name. Isn't that terrible?
Who?
Produced the event.
Andy Gladwin?
No.
Joshua J?
No.
Luke
Oh,
Jeremy.
Luke Jermaine.
Thank you.
right.
Sorry, Luke.
Got it.
Oh my God, forgive me. All right, so Luke Germain, he was the one that produced the whole thing, and Max was there, and he just asked us about the date. He said, "I'll call you and tell you what it's about," and he did.
So that's in Korea, and it's in July.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
And we'll go there, and I think then we go from there. We have something in
India.
In India,
doing
so-
that.
I just want to know a little bit more about FISM and what that entails and what that's going to be like.
We did a FISM in Stockholm a number of years ago. We don't compete. So we're not there to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You're
no,
just
we're
part
not-
of
no,
the
Yeah,
we're
no,
not
they
show
book us
basis.
for the gala show. So I think
Yeah.
that's what we're doing
Yeah,
this
exactly,
time.
yeah.
So I don't even know who else is in the show other than Max.
I don't
Do you
even know either.
So
Yeah,
we don't know.
so yeah, sometimes that's how it goes, and we usually
Cool.
split up our bookings because we can't do it all the same. So
Right,
yeah.
right.
So it'll be a room full of however many magicians at
They're
Stockholm.
actually going to
it was
announce
really,
it. Sorry, they're going to announce tomorrow or the day after who all the entertainers are.
Oh, they are?
FISM,
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Cool.
So
Well, this is live, so is that a problem?
So if someone's listening to this and they're sort of enamored by all of the shows that you guys are doing, and maybe they wanted to do that for themselves, what sort of advice would you have for somebody who wants to maybe start doing bigger shows or start getting booked or noticed by agents, or sort of anything that takes you from, I get a random call from somebody who stumbled upon my website for a kids show to the next, to something a little bit different or a little bit higher level? What sort of advice would you have for somebody like that?
How to get to that next
How
level?
to get to that
Yeah.
next level?
I mean, hard work. It's all really. It does come down to. I don't think there's any magic formula. I don't, because we get asked this question all the time.
Yeah.
How do you either have a good product or you have to create a good product.
Right.
And most of it comes down to personality. If you've got what it takes,
Plus that radio
doesn't
voice.
really
man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that works against me. But I think if you have if your personality is interesting, then you could almost do anything
Yeah.
and sell it as long as
Right.
it's good magic. I think there's a lot of good things like pickpocketing acts. You don't see a lot of that
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
And in fact, we just talked to an agent yesterday who referred to a pickpocketing act he had seen and
Right.
how valuable that is in today's
Yeah.
market.
And he was saying that magician should be promoting that
As a
more because
pickpocket.
there's so many magicians, and although they're all good, whoever they like, but that
Mm-hmm.
would define them. And ventriloquism is another one. I know it's off
Yeah,
the
there's a lot
field
of that.
Yeah.
magic, but there's not much of that. So
There's more of it though these days.
A little bit more,
from AGT.
yeah.
But we pick material too. I think it's important also picking the material. For example, in mentalism, the magic square has been so overdone,
Yeah.
and we love the magic square, and our audiences love the magic square. But
Yeah.
once in a while, if we pull that out, or if we do that, the meeting planner or the booker will say, "Yeah, we saw that before." In one instance, we did it at a show, and they said, "Oh, we had a speaker yesterday afternoon, same audience, same conference." And the guy did that effect.
no.
So now it's that kind of thing that is crossed over from not only magicians and mentalists, but now to speakers,
Public speakers,
because
yeah.
it's a great effect to do to demonstrate some mental ability or some rapid calculation. We carry. Last week we did a corporate in Colorado, and Tessa was setting up the magic square. We have we use a prop that comes together and packs small, but we put it together. And she was setting it up, and I looked over and said, "No, we've been trying to get that out of a
Phase it
show."
out,
And
yeah.
I think for over the last maybe year and a half, it's been in every third show we'll put it in, but we just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
There's effects that are so common, and in magic, it used to be the linking rings.
right,
or
yeah.
People vanishing that stupid bandana banana nonsense.
Yeah, so
Right.
Who knows
I think,
how long.
pick the things that agents who book a lot of magic acts want the
They
different
know.
acts.
They
Cruise
know.
ships don't
Yeah.
want to see another set of linking rings or, whatever it is. I don't know if it's an egg bag or what it is that
Yeah.
they don't want to see. But I know in our field of mentalism, we don't even do a book test anymore because everybody does a book
Everyone
test.
does a book
I
test.
love book tests. I love the magic square. What else? There's a few things that we don't do. So, but for sure, our show, the material that we do, I don't think anybody else is doing the material that we do in our show.
Yeah.
Because it's not all second sight. In an hour and a half show, we have to do a lot of other effects in the show that lend itself to a two-person act.
Right.
Right.
But it's something that probably starts off from a regular one-person mental
It's
show.
good to know that a lot of sort of the answers to how to get noticed by agents and how to sort of move up to the next level is you got to have a fantastic product. You have to be different. It has to be special. It has to be,
Yeah.
like obviously hard work plays a huge piece in it, but general magician B1, you know, or whatever. Like it's hard for that guy to make it because you have to do something special or different or unique or noticeable,
Right.
To really break through.
I think the other thing people can do is focus on the relationships with maybe a few agents, and get their advice, especially agents that have been booking this type of act or type of acts for a long time, so they know what clients tend to want. And you're asking us now, but this is a short interview, so build a relationship with someone like us and get more details, or go, hey, this is my situation. What would you suggest I do?
What should I do with this?
You know, or this is what I would do. I would want them to tell me what would you do? What do you think you should do?
Yeah.
Because they may have a different solution that we haven't even thought of.
Yeah.
But relationships have a lot to do with it, because we all know that we have this loyalty kind of thing triggered in our brains, and often agents will book an act that may not always be the best, but they want to help them, and they want to get them out there and to build.
absolutely.
Right.
So that's probably one of the things that would be key for them in helping in that success.
And one of the things that keeps popping into my head is we interviewed Lou Serrano a little while ago, and his thought on it is, he said, like, there is no one thing. Like, it's everything. You know, it's all the things. Like, you got to have a good website, but you also have to cold call. You also have to find thing. You have to find an agent, and you also have to. There's no one thing. There's no one secret. It's just all of it, right?
Yep.
Like, it's all of it, and that obviously continues to keep ringing true, because it's never going to not be true.
Oh,
but
it's very true. And
you know,
I think that what's fascinating about this entertainment world is, a lot of people think, oh, you just get up there and you do 30 minutes to an hour, and wow, that's a great life. And they even start to tell them everything you have to do.
That's your playtime.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The work is what happens.
It brings that back,
step
like,
off that
that's
stage.
the play, right? That's the joy, that's the fun part, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're very organized too in our office and our computers. And from the beginning, I think back in MS-DOS days, we had a program. So it was a contact database or a CRM.
Yeah.
It was called Telemagic, and it was the best that we've ever used, but it was very basic. And all it did was keep track of all of our clients, our agents. At that time, it was mostly agents. Every phone conversation, every piece of mail that we ever sent them out, we could look them up in a second and see everything that has transpired in our relationship for years with that person. And I think having that ability, that program, Telemagic, probably took us to the next level. And that was nothing to do with the act. It was only to do with our office, the background.
Telemagic excelled your magic. That's cool.
It just happened to be called, it had nothing to do with magicians. It was used for telemarketers, but they called it Telemagic. And then another one came by called Act, and then we got into Act. And now we use, we don't use the kind of things that we used to use anymore, because we just don't do as much outreach anymore. Most of it's now established relationships, but we still keep track of everything. We can look it up in a minute.
Do you think that organization plays a big role in that sort of thing?
Absolutely, because it's important to follow through, either with a client that has called you that hasn't booked you yet. Of course, you think that would be obvious, but when you get busy with life, you're easily going to forget that person. So you want to know, when's their next event? When do they start booking? When do they make their final decision? So if you target those dates, then you can make sure you get back in touch with them, because they're going to forget you easily. They have too much going on for themselves. And even if you do, they book you, then maybe you'll go forward the next year, or a few years down the road, you can do it. Or just, again, it's building relationships. So that really helps. And that takes a lot of work. But if you get it organized and don't stress about it, because I'm sure a lot of people go, oh my God, I don't want to do all that. You just do it. Just make yourself do it, and the payoff will be huge, because what we want is shows. How do you get the shows? You got to do the work.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like the old adage in, like, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but it's like, when you're a student, you realize all of a sudden that you can't memorize a whole course's content for the test because you didn't do any of the work during the week. Right. Like, if you've got a farm or a garden or something, like, you can't
cram it,
put all the water in at the end of the season. Like, you can't do it. Like, there's no way around it. So when a magician's like, how am I going to get all the gigs happening this month? Like, you can't. That was over the last year's worth of planning to get this. And maybe for next year, like, plan to do a little bit more and see what else, what other stuff you can put in.
Yep.
Right on.
So
Well
that
said.
definitely has a big lending to what this is. We're getting towards a point where we start to wrap up the episode, but we have a ton of different wrap-up questions to pull the whole thing together.
I have one more question.
Go ahead. There's no rules.
It's very off topic, but I'm curious. and this is something I do for most. You're Canadian, but I want to know how magic is viewed, at least in your experience, in Caribbean culture, because my grandma is from Trinidad. My dad
really?
grew up here, but
Trini, okay.
yeah. I've been to Trinidad once, and I wasn't a magician at the time.
Huh.
But I also know that there are specific members of my family that are not allowed to know that I'm a magician because they would not approve of that practice. And I just want to know if that's a more universal thing, or is there a huge difference in the way magic is perceived over there versus over here?
But I'm curious, is that a cultural thing? Is it a religious thing in your family?
I don't necessarily know. They would say it's the devil's work, or at least mimicking the devil's work, or they don't even if I tell them how the trick works, they may not trust it. I've never done magic for it because they don't know.
Right.
But I've heard other experiences of like, oh no, I don't want to see a card trick. Thank you very much. I've got to stay pure or whatever.
Well, I think I've just learned along the way because, of course, I didn't see magic being done. And I think magic, this kind of magic. But I think the perception of magic in the culture would be someone who does bad magic, who does something like, voodoo kind of magic.
Right.
Or they do it to bring goodness into your life. So there's more of that real magic. But we had a great experience in St. Lucia when we were visiting. We went for a visit. And we did our show there, and we also did a hypnotism show because Jeff was doing that for a little while. And the response was quite good, but we didn't get as many people out because people didn't know what it was and they were concerned about it. So I got a mixed response about it. But I said, Jeff, when we went to the countryside, I didn't forewarn him, but I was like, we'll just have to be careful. And because people in the country, they live this insular life, and so you'd think that it's just how many miles away, not many, that they should know, but they don't. They live a different kind of life. So a little boy came out of a bread shop, and Jeff did his usual with kids, and he took his coin, made it vanish, and then made it reappear from behind his ear. And I'm just watching this going, I'm like, no, like, don't do that. But he's like, he can't see me. I'm like, no, and he's not hearing. And then all of a sudden, this kid's eyes get this big, and he just threw the bread on the ground and teared off, screaming these words, Laja bless, Laja bless. And Jeff goes to me, what does that mean? And I go, the devil. And so people were coming out of their houses and their shops.
I said, how did he know?
And they were just looking.
Can they see it?
And of course, they heard the word Laja bless, and they look up and down the street, and the only person they see that's different is Jeff, who's white. So they figured it must be him. So this lady comes out, and she goes, what's going on? So I just said, well, he just did some magic. And she goes, show me what you did. And so he showed her, and he goes, and she laughed. She goes, oh, that's all that is. Okay. She says, I will send a message to the little boy's family to tell them what happened, and we'll send some bread up. And we'll say, we'll pay for the bread. She goes, oh, no, you don't have to do that. We'll send the bread, and we'll explain it, and he'll be okay. And I'm like, I don't know if they're going to be okay, but okay. So I said, don't ever do that again. So going forward, we performed in South Africa. And we did this show, and normally in our shows, when we're done our show, and I won't be long because I know we have to wrap up.
Oh, there's literally no time for
okay,
whatever
great.
you want.
Yeah.
So we go down into the audience. That's what we normally do after show. We go down into the audience. We say thank you to whoever the host or the booker is, and we start thanking different people that helped us in the show, or whatever happens.
Yeah.
We just filter through the audience. So we did that in South Africa. We went down into the audience, and we got halfway through the audience, and people just started freaking out, and they jumped up out of their chairs, and they started saying to me, touch me, give me good energy, heal me, what's the winning lottery numbers? And Jeff and I got split up, and it was becoming a mob scene, and I was like, oh my God, they're going to crush me. And one of the organizers of the event, he was the assistant. He was like Saul. He was 6'7" tall, and I just heard him say, "Tessa, hold your hand up." And I heard his voice, and I thought, "Oh yes, he can see me because I could hear Jeff."
Wherever you are, Saul.
And he literally came and pulled me, and he had to pull me up over the heads of everybody and carry me off.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And they were like, oh, are you okay? I said, yes, thank you. And he goes, okay, never go into the audience after your show, okay? Apparently you freaked them out. And they were literally that freaked out that they thought we were that real. And so
but we've also had it in the southern U.S.
What? I was just going to ask, just so we could talk a little more about it.
Yeah.
The act that you guys do is very real. You know, like people, you know, you watch a magic show, you're like, wow, that was crazy. I don't know how they cut her in half, they put her back together. Anyways, let's go get brunch, right? Or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you watch that and you're like, I think there's a person in this world that knows my thoughts. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I think she knows my thoughts. Like, how did she know the name of my father or whatever, right? Like you leave this show and it's different than you watch a Mentalist and you say, wow, that guy can analyze my body language.
Right.
Anyways, wouldn't play poker with him. Anyways, let's go get some brunch, right? Like, where, again, you watch this and you're like, I don't know, man. Like, I think
and
that
we
can
play it real. I mean,
Of
and not that
course,
we're
right?
trying to convince anybody, because we do our disclaimers and we do let everybody know that it's a show. But while we're doing the show, we play it as though
100% real.
it's real. And our effects are all very real. If it's a pendulum effect, we do a key erect routine where everybody in the audience has got pendulums out and they're all experiencing. So the whole show is designed to feel very real, rather than, you know, a carnival or some other sideshow thing.
So do you get a lot of, like, crazy responses from that sort of thing in the
usually
direction
it's very
that-
positive, but sometimes in the South, I can think in the South where there's been instances where even death threats. We've had, you know, the FBI had to follow a case for almost a year, and then they finally found the person, and by that point, Tessa just said, "Well, let it go, but give a warning, but let it go." But we had. You know, we've had Bibles put under our windshield wipers of rental cars. I'm trying to think of, I can remember a show in Florida where our event, which we had done every year for a number of years, always a packed house. This one particular year, maybe a third full, and it was showtime. And the organizers kept saying, well, let's stall, something's going on. And finally, they huddled over to the side, and I overheard them say that there was something happening on campus to try to get people not to come to our show. So we went over and walked outside, and they had it was billed as a Christian hip hop and they were standing out in front of the doors for our theater saying, don't go to the show. This is the work of the devil. Go to the show across. And so people were very confused. It's college kids, and they're very confused. Then they started giving out chocolate bars. If you don't go to this show, you can get whatever the Kit Kat or whatever the heck it was, and then go to the Christian hop across the way. So very rare that happens, but I think our first instance of this was in South Carolina or North Carolina. And we were doing a theater, again, a college show, but a theater. And they took us around to show us their campus when we first arrived. And we noticed that all our posters were not on the regular billboards where all the other posters were. Every one of our poster was in like a trophy case or some kind of a glass encased.
Locked behind the case.
Didn't think much of it, but then we got to setting up the show, these armed guards came in and stood at either door in the back of the room. And then we said, well, why do we have guns on campus? Just seems so surreal. And we were living in Canada at the time, so that whole thing was different for us.
Right.
But then they waited till after the show to tell us, well, the reason all your posters were behind glass is because one of the professors, a university professor, imagine, told the kids that this was the work of Satan, that they shouldn't come to this show.
Lord.
And they should do everything they can to stop
Stop
this
it from
show.
happening.
So they would
That
rip
is
down all our posters.
crazy.
So what they had to do was put new posters up behind glass. And then they started saying, well, if this show is going to come through, there will be something, we have to defend the word. So then they had to hire armed guards to come in. So fortunately, hey, kudos to them. They did everything they can to make this show go forth, and it was a great show. It was packed. All that did? Their
Packed
efforts
them more.
just made the standing room
Yeah.
only. So, but there's been a few instances, but I'd say
Minnesota was the only
Minnesota was another
we
one.
canceled the show, and then we had the day off. We were on a tour.
Yeah, I mean, we were flying in there anyhow, so we had to be there that night, no matter what. It was part of a big tour, and so
in the
Sunday
mall,
night or
remember?
Saturday night, whatever, we went in the mall, and Tessa was trying on some clothes, and as typical, I started talking with the girl behind the register, and she said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "Oh, we're performers. We're here for a show." "Oh, what kind of a show?" And so I did something with her where then Tessa read her mind. She said, "Oh, I know who you guys are. Oh, we heard all about you guys. You're supposed to," but our show the next day at their school was canceled. She was a student. This is a part-time job for her.
wow.
And she said, "Yeah, they told us that you guys this was the work of Satan." And so we had to go in to pick up our check because they had to pay us anyhow, even though they canceled it the day before. So we went in, pick up the check. We had to meet with the dean of students, and he just wanted to talk with us.
Make sure you weren't devils or anything.
Well, he wanted to give us a message about their beliefs. And I just sort of, I'm an atheist, so I just said I don't believe him, and that was kind of the end of the meeting. He said, "Okay, here's your check." But it was so uncalled for because nothing in our promotion, nothing.
It's not an anti-religious show that you do, right?
They have lots of other mentalists, and I know that this sort of thing happens to other people. Who knows why it is? Who knows why it happens? I don't know.
Do you find it like disheartening, or do you like laugh it off at this point?
Well, it's so
like someone
so
slips a Bible under your.
It's probably happened 5 times. So
right.
we've given you maybe 5 examples. I don't think there's any other examples of that ever happening.
No, I can't think of anything else. But I think that that was one of the reasons we started using a disclaimer. Not that we ever wanted to, because we figure we're on this stage. At least I have a very strong belief in that. So I don't think I have to disclaim. I think it's in opposition to what we're trying to do while we're performing, any performer. But we understood how powerful our show was. So it would give either the organizer or the advisor or whoever something to hang their hats on. They said, well, no, they're not trying to make you believe whatever they quoted. But I think the other part of that is we also want to be sure that students and people aren't walking away thinking negatively about us. We don't like that at all. So we work really hard to let them understand we're doing a show and that they shouldn't let their beliefs affect what we're doing here. It's just for fun, and they need to take it that way. So, I don't know.
And if you want a reading for $20, she'll tell you.
It's very valuable to hear this sort of side of it because, magicians, we often talk about, like, do people ever believe what we're saying? Like, do people ever, does someone ever think that this is real? And then, there's a lens of, like, yeah, they could probably think that someone could read their body language and know that they're holding a coin in their left or right hand. But then you're like, what's going on here? Like, someone could leave a show and say, well, that was real. Like, I think that's a person that, right?
Yeah,
like, I think
emails that she gets blow your mind from people, not only students, from adults and from corporate people and they'll, I mean, this is up to you whether you share, but there's some really personal stuff that people will, because they just assume that Tessa has the answers. It happens all the time. Even last night it happens. So you would think that maybe people should know better. They don't. If you're not selling it, if you're not presenting it as though it's a mental magic trick, if it's psychic entertainment, you have to be able to deal with those people who will come back. And I don't think I can deal with that. I don't think I have the goods to deal with it, but I'm not the mentalist. And Tessa has a history before she met me of tarot and palm and readings, and this is her life, very separate from my life, and I think I can say you still believe in a lot of that, where I have a skeptical approach. You are somewhat of a shut-eye.
Somewhat of a shut-eye, because I believe in the power of belief more than anything else. I believe in intuition. I believe we have natural gifts that way. But I just think everything, the tarot, all that are just tools for thoughts, more or less. And I also think that even when magicians are doing mental magic, in quotations there, there's still going to be people out there that are going to believe what you're doing is real. And especially mentalism, when you're doing a powerful effect, even when there's a certain body of people, I just don't want to point out names, but we all know who they are, and that's fine. They have a structure in their show that they make sure that they keep saying that this is not real and this is fake and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. If it's a really good effect, people walk away. We hear them all the time. Yeah, that was fake and that was magic, whatever, but that thing, whatever it was, wow. So they're still taking some of that away. So if you're on stage doing any of this, you better know that you're not getting away with it. That's what people think, that I'm safe because I say this and do this.
It's okay.
No, you're not. That person, you have people walking away believing it. Can you live with that? That's what you have to deal with. And I don't know, I can deal with it. I've dealt with a lot of people. I've helped a lot of people, not because I have all the answers. I know that I don't have all the answers, and I'm very careful what I've said to them. But a lot of people come to talk to me because they have no one to talk to. They don't know who to talk to about this, especially on campuses. But if I run into a troubling situation, I don't go, here, buy this card, do this, whatever, see you later. I don't do that. I make sure that that person gives me permission, and I'm hooking them up with the advisor, someone there to get support and help. And also on our business cards, we give our personal phone numbers. People can reach us because they do. Every once in a while they do call. And we're going to go, who's giving you help? We're making sure they're doing okay.
Yeah.
Now, most people go, I just want to go on stage and do my show. Even if I didn't ever do readings, I'm still going to get those questions. I'm still going to get people asking for help. And that's what I've always been like all my life anyway, even when I'm not on stage.
So what do you tell someone after the show that says like, tell me about my mother, like she passed away like 5 years ago, like what is she telling to me, like how do you respond to something like that?
Right. Well, one of the things that I do with everybody and everything is I just trust my intuitive thoughts. So I'm going to say something to that person that will have meaning, but I want to caution them that, one, don't spend thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars going to anyone to try to reach someone that has passed away. I mean, that's not going to happen. So reach into yourself. And I don't do it like this. I'm doing it clinically.
Yeah.
But I do it so that they do recall, or they were going to reach out to family members who have had an experience that feels that they've made contact with their past one. In other words, go inside to your family, go inside to yourself, because we all have a connection with them in one way or the other. Be it just in our own minds, because that's probably all that it is. It's just how our minds and our hearts work. But I'm giving them a message that will calm them, that will make them feel better and grounded and help them on their way to healing. And mostly I encourage them when they're ready to talk about their loved one, because that's what really keeps them alive. And in talking about them, they're going to meet somebody else that's had a similar experience. So that's really what I'm doing. But for them, they think that I just made contact with them, but I've never said that.
Right.
I didn't say that I did not, although sometimes I'll say clearly, I'm not contacting them. I'm saying my only feeling that I have right now, this thought is my head, but you've had those thoughts in your head before.
Right.
So just frame it differently.
Find a way to give them something of value
something
without
of value, but to caution
awesome.
them not to take this too far. Because people are really vulnerable when they've lost a loved one. We all know that.
Of course.
You'll do anything to feel that you can connect with them. Yeah.
So now we're sort of nearing the wrap up. We have a few different wrap up questions. The first is, what is something in the 2018-2019 space in terms of magic that you like, and something in this space that you don't like?
Magic in general.
Yeah, magic in general. I mean, it can be more mentalism specific, but...
I'm not sure. You go. I just talked a lot.
I'm not a fan of straitjacket escapes.
Really?
Okay. I mean, is that the kind of thing you're...
Well, I mean, like people say things like they are or are not a fan of what's going on social media with magic, or maybe people say that they're not a fan of the quantity of magic being released, or then sometimes people say they are a fan of those things. They are a fan of there's more people maybe on stage performing now because of the whole America's Got Talent thing. There's just this love for the stage, this resurgence that's back, and so people say a lot of different things. If you have nothing, don't worry.
Well, I think the only thing that I think we talk about a lot. I'm somewhat bothered by the number of people who are willing to give away information for very little. They're almost giving it away for free.
Yes.
And I think that there's a lot of, there's one company in particular that runs a number of lectures that you can download video series, and it's just nonstop. And the material is, I think some of that material is just too good to be given away in that medium. You know, I come from a background where you learned everything from books. It didn't come from, I know that I'm, maybe speaking to a different generation in that, and I love videos, but boy, the stuff that is just too easily accessible now.
Yeah.
And yet there seems to be no end. I don't know why people do it. Maybe some of it's for the ego, I suppose, because they get their name out there. But we just don't share stuff, so we're not in the. We get asked at these magic conventions to do a lecture. We just don't have a lecture by choice. We don't want to do that. So,
but if you sign up right now for
I think the other flip side of that is people stealing material, taking material, and why really troubles me is because so often you can just ask that person if one could use that material, use that line, or use their title, and they quite likely might say, no, you may not, but what are you doing? And maybe they'll help you with something else. But it just really troubles me, and that any one of us has to spend our time protecting what's
we
ours, and we
do.
work so hard to make it ours, and someone just comes and grabs
Like
it.
the term mentalist duo, as an example.
Yeah.
You know, that if you look up mentalist duo, that's us, and that's what
Oh,
we've
really?
always
Created that
framed
title.
ourselves
Oh, wow.
as.
Yeah.
So when somebody else comes along and says we're Canada's foremost mentalist duo,
You're like,
that's a little weird.
Right.
Why? What's the motivation for that? Are we the target that they're or
Yeah, are they just trying to ride on your success? Like, who knows?
right?
really?
Yeah, but
Who
maybe
knows?
ask. Maybe we could be friends if we approach it in a different way.
Yeah.
We've asked so many performers over the years, and we still do. If we see something we really like, and we see a way to incorporate it and maybe use it ourselves, and without taking from them, 9 times out of 10, if you ask somebody, "Hey,
They'll say,
we have an
"Sure."
idea," we've helped so many people along the way, and some of our friends that we've met when they were just young in college or even in high school are now performers, successful, and now end up booking us on shows. So always be nice to people,
Yeah.
but be respectful of people as well.
One of the great pieces of information that we got on this note from Michael Close is he said, just because you see someone do something on TV doesn't mean you should try to have it. Like
Right.
it just
Well, it's great.
some of
Yeah.
these things are just not yours to have.
Right.
And that was the first time that we heard this sort of piece of information as a little note about, 2018, 2019
Yeah.
is like you're about to see a lot of stuff that you have no that you have no business doing.
Right.
So true.
That you have, and just remember that not everything is for sale, and not everything is for you, and it's a very interesting wake up call that people put a lot of work into their act and their
Yeah.
names and their titles and who they are and different things like that. So.
I find it really surprising after all this exposure and so much access to anybody, that anybody has access to magic. So we'll see a lot of performers, well, not even really performers, just doing a magic trick and doing it terribly and still fooling people around them or not fooling everybody. I'm just surprised all this is happening and that magic hasn't had an implosion, right? In fact, it's going the other way, that people seem to love magic more.
Yeah.
And we notice that even with promotion and certain things we're doing, that we find we have to put a little magic word in there to make sure that we get that pow and get that attention. If we just say mentalism or mind reading, it doesn't always seem to be enough. So I find that really quite fascinating how that's working. So
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing stuff like that going on in magic right now.
Oh,
a little brown bag for you guys.
Did we just get a gift?
Man, I don't know. It's a
Paper
mystery.
brown
I
bag.
don't know.
Yeah.
Should we open it right now?
Right now.
Yeah,
there.
go for it. I didn't want to forget it.
Oh,
I forgot about that. Good memory. So there's a little chocolate shop in Fergus that they.
Oh, that's so nice.
So you
We'll take a
guys, your
photo.
initials
We'll
are J and
upload
T,
it.
and so
Yeah.
are we, J and T.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh.
And these are chocolate, handmade. In fact, the J was made today.
Yes, because they didn't have any J's.
Oh, that's a today J. That's what that is.
Sorry.
Today J.
Thank you so much.
That is
welcome.
awesome. We'll take a photo with it with you guys before you
Yeah,
go.
I love chocolate there in Fergus. And, we had some last
amazing.
night. Yeah, it was a
I was
treat.
like, why do you open a paper bag? It's kind of crumbling near the microphone.
Just about wrapping
I was
up.
like, are you about to eat brunch? What's going on? That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. We have a few other little wrap-up questions. The first of them is the question of the week. So we've got tons of, as you like, millions of magicians listening to this stuff. But we've got a ton of magicians listening to this. They love to interact and share their thoughts and feelings and stuff. An opportunity for a question of the week. You can do 2 or 1 together, whatever you like. Either something that you want to know what all of these people think in terms of polling an audience of magicians, or maybe a question that you'd love all these magicians to ask themselves and maybe have a moment to think about and be introspective about. What do you want to ask all the magicians of the world?
wow.
These are some heavy questions.
Yeah, man.
Bring it home at the
We
end.
really do.
We go zingers.
So we want them to ask us a question, or we want to ask them a
You're
question.
asking them a
Yeah.
question.
So why do you think you want to do magic?
Why do you
What
wanna
is the
do
motivation for doing? Is it to fool people, to entertain people?
Yeah.
Is it to be cool, to be thought of as somebody who's got superhuman powers, or yeah? Well, why?
Well, there's 2 people here, so I get to ask.
Yeah,
questions
you
too.
ask your question.
Yeah.
I want to know and you're going to think, why am I not answering this question? But I want to know why there aren't more women in magic.
Right.
Love it.
Good question.
Love it. We had, we've had quite a few women in magic on the podcast, and recently, I don't want to speak about this so negatively, but we had Billy Kidd on, and she's amazing. And we asked her about, what it's like being a woman in magic, and she said, I think you guys should stop asking that question because she said, you're making it a thing, and why have it be a thing? And it hurt because I want to know, like, I want to hear what it's like. I want to know what it's like. I think it, but then I also sort of understand the other side of it. Like, is asking about it, does it make it a thing when it doesn't need to be a
she's
thing?
Different
like,
than the rest of
I don't,
us, right?
So I don't know, but I love the question, and we've learned from the responses from the podcast that there are a ton of women in magic that listen to this and are fans of this and are a part of this.
They own our shirts.
Yeah,
right
we've
on.
got a lot of them wearing our shirts. It's very cool. So
I just think we're not hearing about enough of them. That's number
no,
one.
but also there's no question that percentage wise, like it can't be more than 10%, right? Can't be more than. So obviously the numbers are askew, but I would love to know why there aren't more. And if women that are listening to this,
Can I say more about it?
Anything you
okay.
like.
So I agree with what Billy's saying. I get where she's coming from, but I think the other thing is interesting. At Magic Live last year, Laura London. I don't know if you guys know of her, right?
Of course.
Okay. So Laura, she said a similar thing that yes, just. Why don't you, instead of saying why aren't there or we should hire more women, why don't you just hire them? Why don't you just book them? And let's not talk about it anymore. And that came about because Stan Allen was saying that in the future, future Magic Lives, that he wants to have more women present. And his daughter and other female family members and friends were saying, we're the women. They're out here. They're in the audience. Why aren't they up there? Well, on the other hand, too, where are we? Are we pushing, we women, are we pushing enough to be up there and saying, hey, I want that part, I want to do this. So maybe we need to speak up more or put ourselves in a place that we can get more. I'm not judging women because that's not the whole thing. And I think it's been probably a struggle. I'm lucky. I think I'm in a safer position. I'm not a single female entertainer. That's a whole different ballgame. So I highly respect them. And I don't feel I can speak for them because I've been in the shadows. Mind you, being in this second sight performance, this act that we have, I'm in the forefront, but I'm still safe because I've got Jeff out there, right?
Yeah.
So it's a whole different thing. So I really respect them, and I'll do anything to support them to get out there. And I think the more we talk about it, it's time to put the light on it. I agree.
And I think everyone sort of has an opportunity to make moves towards it. Whether if you're listening to this and you produce shows like Fight Hard, I know with the Toronto Magic Company, we fight so hard to try to get more and more women on the lineup. With the podcast, every now and then we're like, we should bring some more women. Like, there's more people. We're always thinking we've got this like trail of men. We're like, it's time to and we just say like, okay, let's just book 3 or 4 of them. Like so everybody who's listening to this has an opportunity to just help bring them in and have.
Sure. And I think the other aspect is that when you think about how we all see magic, we're seeing men do magic, and we see women as their assistants, so that they're not dominant in that role. So we don't have those role models, and we don't have all the solutions. That we
Magic's
need to create.
a slow-changing industry, right? It takes a long time because it's so secretive. So the image of like the male magician with all the power is just ingrained in your brain from when you're a child, whereas like that's probably the same thing that women felt when they saw doctors or any serious profession in the I don't know when. I'm not good with time. Let's say 30s. But yeah, I think that, like you said, it's time to push and it's time to create that change, especially now with social media and the industry changing so rapidly.
Yes.
Now more than ever, I mean, we can make it happen. So.
I think it is helping. I mean, there's a lot of smaller groups or bigger groups growing, women's groups, and so there is a movement happening, no doubt.
Yeah,
so
we're on the way.
But we don't have the numbers anyway. So even though it gets better, it's just a small pool we're dealing with.
There's nothing like we can bring on a ton of women onto the podcast. It'll still be 10%, you know, or 5%, right? It was like, you know, and we can do more than like
we're
we can
105 episodes in. Like it's kind of hard to counterbalance that now.
20%, right? So, but definitely, I love that point. I love a good. It's a good question, sort of both as a love to hear the response from women who are listening to this as to like maybe how can you get more out there, and also maybe introspective for some of the men who are listening to this who maybe produce shows or have a big part in that sort of thing, and how can you sort of you know help that
since the men are the ones that are the masses out there, we really do need their support and their help, and so because they could change it so much faster than we can, simply for that reason.
Yeah,
so,
of course,
hope it'll
love
happen.
that.
So the next one is the PSA. It's kind of similar to the question of the week, except this is just a general public service announcement. What do you think the magic community, the discoursers, need to hear? It could be anything from start doing this to stop doing that.
We've had things from one of the most resonant ones is stop doing banana bandana. You know,
I think we've gotten it 3 times or something.
So anything. What other magicians of the world need to know?
Wow, I don't want to insult anybody.
Insult them all.
No, really?
Call them by
That's what this
name.
is all
I
about,
don't
right?
care,
We're just here to
whatever.
call people out.
Podcast feud is what we're here for.
Wow, I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, maybe, you know, I saw last night that people maybe push some magic on people that don't want to see magic, and we just assume that everybody wants to see magic a lot.
What were you talking about last night?
Yeah, I just saw. I'm not going to mention anybody in particular. Not in the show. Just some other people that were in the audience.
Matt DeZero was really. I'm kidding.
Matt was on his game last night.
Oh yeah,
I just know he listens to this.
That was a great spot.
We shout it out whenever we can.
Wow.
So.
No, I mean, you know, just having somebody pick a card when sometimes it's
they
not
don't wanna
appropriate.
pick a
It's just
card.
the wrong moment. But
Right.
people are always looking for somebody to perhaps some magicians are always looking for that
Somebody to
mark.
pick a card for them.
Yeah.
Quick, name a card. Name a number.
Yeah.
Name a card. I was once asking like someone that I was with to keep like naming cards and naming numbers. I was working on a trick, and he was like, "Can't you just get an app?" And then I did. So I found a random
You can,
card and
actually.
random number generator app, and I was like, "I'm good. I don't need anybody." Ding 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 ding.
Very good. For me, it was actually, and I remember his name, but I won't say his name. That
Matt DeZero.
Yeah, it's all going to be Matt. We're going to play Matt for everything. He did one of your podcasts, and God, that burned me. And I started thinking, boy, I must be getting old, but I don't feel old. I actually feel great. But I can't stand the dissing of the elders. It just
I know exactly
drives
who you're
me
talking
crazy.
about.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
podcast.
I don't think you have to agree with their ideas or their methods or their you got to do it this way or no way. Just listen to them and
They're
hear what they have to
people.
say and maybe get something from them because they do have something important to
Wow,
say.
we get good advice
Yeah.
from some of the
Oh
older guys.
God, yeah.
of
I mean,
course.
that's how we've grown. So I just couldn't believe he could come on and go that as though they were worthless, as though because we're part of that we're worthless. We're not worthless, any of us. And so, man, I want to say your name, but I'm going to see you in person. And when I see you, I'm going to tell you, honey.
And she will.
I'd be pumped for that.
I will.
I'm pumped for that. Hopefully,
Cherish them because, as you probably know, we all are going to go to the other side, wherever that might be, maybe nowhere soon. And a lot of them are leaving, right? They're gone. They're going. And God, it's so hard to let go of
100%.
them.
It doesn't matter if you're talking magic or just the way you see the world. Like, there's going to be elders in your life that see it so differently. They're not like, yes, you're going to have to change and be progressive and take a step forward, but you also have to look back and like learn from that and respect those people.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know what? We have someone who we're going to be interviewing in the next few days, which I'm not going to say the name. I'll tell you guys after. But it's one of those things where I've listened to other interviews with him and I've listened to some of the things that he said and I've been like, you know, maybe I disagree with that. Maybe I disagree with that. And then I'm like, this is a living legend in magic. Like, let's just put the fact that I disagree with some of the things that he thinks aside for a second, and let's not discount, you know, let's not say like, oh, these old people in magic and all their thoughts, and like, this is still a legend in magic that I get to hear their opinions and thoughts and feelings and how they got to where they are, and like, let's put all that
I
stuff
know who it
aside.
is.
So
Are they from
I will show
Toronto?
you after. No, I'll show you guys afterwards. But it's very exciting. One of the last segments is called the Endless Chain. So in order for us to get this podcast to go on for eternity, we have each person on tell us someone else that they think needs to be on, or the recommendation for the podcast. So who do we have to have on the podcast?
If you haven't had them,
You had a ton of people.
We have.
You can just name
You can name a
people,
bunch
and if
of-
we've had them, we'll nix it. So
Have you had Ryan Joyce on?
We have not yet.
We have not.
It's a great
He's a
one.
really good guy. He's a
Yeah.
worker. He's out there. It was unbelievable what he did last night for this
Beautiful.
TV show that he's working on.
have you
He's-
had Glenn Ottaway?
No, we have not.
No.
Wow.
Perfect.
Oh my God,
Perfect
you guys.
tale.
Guys,
Oh.
have Glenn on. He's here.
Perfect.
He's local. Now's the time. There's no better
Perfect.
time. He's, he just came through a medical situation. He
Major.
looked great
We thought we were
last
going
night.
to lose him, and he's here, and he's strong, and
Perfect.
He's
Yeah.
like the guy in Toronto, or one of the guys that everybody modeled themselves
Yeah.
after.
we hear about him all the time, so many places. Glenn Ottaway, his name over and over. It's
Yeah.
great. You've got to have him, guys.
Beautiful recommendations.
the favorite part. So
Yeah.
it's sort of like the best of. We each go around one at a time, me and Jonah Stark.
Oh, okay.
And we just highlight something that we talked about in the episode, and something like a take-home point for our listeners, because
Right.
it's been about an hour and it's a lot to take in.
Okay.
I particularly like your advice on relationships. I know I mentioned that earlier, but I thought it was so cool to separate the business and romantic dynamic of relationships, but also see the parallels and how they help work together. I thought that was really valuable for people inside and outside of magic. Like any walk of life, that's very important information. So thank you so much for sharing that. Jonah, what about you?
I'm just really enthralled into the whole process of putting together an act that is special and unique and resonant, and really doing something that's different. A lot of the advice that we get on this is tactical. Maybe this is what you do to get a gig, or this is a good type of way to open your show, or this is a kind of line that would no. But really what I'm getting the vibe from is you guys are doing something different and doing something special and making sure that you stand out in what you're doing, and and it's clearly been working. So the real weight on having a fantastic act makes such a big difference. Obviously, I know the hustle of the business, but the way that you're like, we did that first show and then people started booking us, and we started putting that weight in the act and putting that weight into putting together something fantastic for the stage is such an important thing that people forget. You always think you're like, yeah, people messaging all these magic forums like, I got the gig, what should I do? And it's like the other way, right? It's like, let me put together an act and then I'll try to get a gig,
Right.
So it's very cool to see sort of this like act first, mentality for the whole thing, and it's very exciting to see that. That was definitely a highlight for me. What about you guys? What was a highlight or a specific take-home point do you think is particularly important for people listening to this?
What was really, really important for me is that I just fried your mind doing the serial number
Oh,
on the bill.
That was crazy.
Because that's all about what we do, right?
Oh, that's insane.
I really enjoyed what I've really come to enjoy about listening to your podcast. Both of
Are
you.
you guys listeners?
Oh God, yes.
That is so
hey,
crazy.
We are
Means so
road
much.
That is so
warriors. We
crazy.
have to get this information in our minds.
I also
Keep
feel so
going.
ridiculous that we're like, here's a thing that we do at the end of the episode. You guys are like, we know.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No,
Just
no.
go right
Only
into
this
it
one we
then.
know. I don't
Yeah.
remember the other things.
Yeah, no, the other ones we didn't know. I just like that you are so young, but yet the way you think, you're not just about the trick. You want to understand everything from ground up, about the emotions, about the relationships with yourself and with the audience. I find you to be very clever young men, and I
thank
hope
you.
that you will do very well wherever you go, because I think you understand that if it's not working in this direction, we're going to look in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just going to stay the course. Maybe, I don't know, what's the discourse? Where did that all come from? I
Yeah.
don't even know what
Yeah.
that is all about.
Right.
But that's what you're individual, but yet you're really connected on that level. And I heard that from the words you were saying in this whole podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That's very
That means
nice.
a tremendous amount.
And I'll just add that we have 10 acres of farmland in eastern Ontario. and it hasn't been doing very well, then you said something that we have to water the plants?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Every day.
Something like a schedule. I don't know.
Okay, so I'll remember that. That's my big takeaway.
I love it. And with that, thank you guys so much. Is there anything that you have to plug? Maybe a place that people can see you or find you, or if there's a social media channel specifically that you guys are real trying to hustle on, where can people follow along with the Evasons?
Most of our shows are private, but we do a fair
Sorry,
number
guys.
Well, we do a pretty good number of public shows too, so it's on our website, it's on our Facebook. So yeah, I would just say look us up on Facebook, The Mentalist Duo.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And really do it. Like if you have the opportunity to go see them perform, do it. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah. And with that, thank you guys so much. What an awesome episode. So fun to be in person and to have one of these great
And thank you for the awesome gifts.
Yeah, I got a J, you got a
Amazing.
T. This is
So happy
great.
about it.
This was very special. So thank you guys so much. And of course, thank you to everyone at home listening and for joining us for an hour of learning about what it's like to read minds. So thank you guys so much. And
Thank
we
you.
will see you all next Thursday.
Take care.
Well, there you go. Episode 111, 111 with the Evasons. Super cool. I hope you learned something. And if you are in any sort of partnerships with someone with your magic, I'd love to hear about it. I'm in two. I do one with Toronto Magic Company and, of course, one with Discourse and Magic. And I'd love to hear how your partnerships go if you do any. Maybe you pair with someone to help you book gigs, or maybe you're in a duo act, or maybe you and someone share. I don't know, but I'd love to hear about it. You share a company, something. So if it is, send me a message, send me an email, say hello, and I'd love to hear about it. And thank you so much for joining us on 111. See you next Thursday.